Previously, I discussed using one of these inexpensive PC soundbars that you can find on Amazon for under $20 for my project, for my audio project, to use it for the enclosure and the speakers. And while I couldn't use the entire inside here, I did have enough space in here that I think I can work with. So my next step was I took out the knob and everything that came with this and the cover, and I took my handy calipers and I started measuring. And the first part I measured was the width and the depth here, so that I can design a simple plate and just test fit it. So far so good, right? So the next step was how to cover the back part. And one of the challenges with this particular one and the other one that I have is that it's not a 90-degree angle. It's actually tilted slightly. You can see it there. It's only tilted by 4 degrees, but in order to get it to work correctly and look nice, you have to have that tilt. So I added the back part and have it at an angle, and then I did a test print because I might as well test print it and fit it out, and it's coming together pretty nicely. So I know that I've got a core shape that I could work with. I could work within this footprint. Well, what I want to put inside of here is a QT Py or similar. This is a SAMD21. I'm going to probably put in a Studio XIAO board because I don't need some of the stuff that the QT Py gives me. And the other parts I'm going to have in here are a real-time clock and an MP3 player. So the MP3 player is going to store the audio clips, and it has the audio amplifier, which will drive the speakers. Now, as mentioned previously, I am not using the amplifier that came with this because it just takes up too much space. So I'm going to use the one that's on here, and I certainly hope it's powerful enough. So I have 3 things here, right? And by lucky happenstance, they pretty much fit in that footprint. That, you know, just luck is on my side with this one. So the first thing I did, I knew that was okay. I did a little flat plate with some sample footprints and mounting points just to see if I could get in the ballpark and if I could truly fit this on there. And it was looking good. I knew I was going to have to tweak stuff and shift stuff around. One helpful hint, the model had the full height of this part, but I was only doing a test print for the boards. So in my slicer software, I said stop printing at 6 millimeters or that is, and waste my time printing all this other stuff I need. Yes, I am printing a lot, but when I do, I try to be smart about it. So now I knew that I had a pretty good footprint, and I've worked with the format quite a bit before, and I've worked with some of these other boards before, and came up with this, which is pretty close. This is not the final one, but it is pretty close, where the QT Py will slip in there, and the MP3 player will be here, and the real-time clock will be here. Both the real-time clock and the MP3 player are held by M2 4 screws, so they do have mounting holes already. The QT Py format does not, because it's such a tight board. So this, I make little rails around it, and it'll get a little hit of hot glue once I'm done with it to keep it from popping out. The other thing you'll see is I have the cutouts on the back so that a user can, normally the device will be powered with the USB, but I wanted the user to have the ability to potentially swap out that real-time clock battery. It's unlikely to happen, but allow that capability without opening and taking everything apart. And the same thing on the MP3 player. Now the MP3 player, the reason it has the USB jack is to program it, not to program it, but to put the MP3 files on there. It has onboard memory, and that's how you transfer files onto it. So normally the user would never touch that, but I need to during my programming and development. So what will happen in the final design is I will have little caps that'll go over these two very infrequently used ports. So they're accessible, but the average user is not going to plug stuff into it. And then the primary port there will be right on the back. And it will all kind of slip together like that. What I've also done is I took off the connectors that were on the speaker and the LED wires. Again, these are the LED wires, and then these are the speaker wires. So I took off the connector so that I could find a different way to connect it. What I am going to do is I'm going to solder a short 4-pin header onto this board, and then simply plug these into that header and do the classic drop a hot glue to keep them in place. But that seemed like the best mix of not having to cut these wires, and I don't have a whole lot to work with here, and that final assembly could be a drag if everything is soldered together. So that's where I'm at now. The next video is going to cover me doing the initial wire up of the QT Py / Seed Studio XIAO board to the MP3 player and see if I can get them to talk to each other, then load some music or songs or phrases or whatever, and see if how it drives the speakers. So stay tuned.